Imagine not being able to read the paper because your hands were shaking. Imagine not being able to read newsprint as your world faded to black. The National Federation of the Blind, Newsline, Indiana. With your host, Lee Martin, and co-host, Florence Myers McSwine.
Welcome to this week's National Federation of the Blind Newsline, Indiana. And I am your co-host, Florence Myers McSwine, here with your host, Mr. Lee Martin, and a special guest whom Lee will introduce. So, good morning, Lee.
Hello. Just want to welcome everyone to our show. And we do have a special guest. She's a return guest. And we didn't quite complete our interview with Miss Margaret Sapora Jones. Very good guest, very good interview. And we just want to continue our conversation with Miss Jones. But before we do that, we will talk just a little bit about our program, our National Federation of the Blind Newsline. It is a program that is developed by the National Federation of the Blind, and it's a service that allows blind citizens, those that are print challenged, and even those that are deaf blind, and those that have certain forms of dyslexia, an opportunity to access the printed press. You can read over 500 publications, including 17 international publications, as well as 13 national publications. And those publications are a few, it's just like the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, the Washington Post, and a plethora of others. So there's a breaking news category, which is very popular right now. And that has 38 different publications from ABC, BBC, CNN, Huffington Post, Fox News, that you can read that's updated hourly throughout the day. And it also contains the content that you have when it first opens throughout the day. So, Florence, you want to talk a little bit about the magazines?
Surely. I first like to talk a little bit about Access World Magazine. That's a magazine that I have been reading lately. It's given me a lot of information on accessibility equipment that's available for the blind, visually impaired. And I think that it's a great magazine. There's also Best Recipes magazine for people who like to cook. There's Guidepost magazines for people who like read inspirational stories. And Stone Soup for children. And the children actually write those stories for that magazine. There's also Poets and Writers magazines for individuals who like to write poetry as well. So, Lee, there's a lot of magazines that are available for us, including Indianapolis Monthly, which is a great magazine as well. So, as I mentioned always, I love reading, especially the magazines.
Well, I tell you, and there's devices that we use. People want to know, well, what devices do we use? So some of the devices that we use is for basically all skill sets. We have the telephone, the landline telephone. We also have the mobile devices, the smartphones. We also have the Amazon Alexa skill, which is very popular. And we also have the computer, as well as the Victor Reader Stream. So to learn more about us, follow our commercials, and you can also visit us here in Indiana on www.nfbnewsline-in.org. So we'll be right back with our guest, Ms. Sapora Jones, and I think you want to stay tuned for this lively conversation.
As I travel the nation, I read NFB Newsline.
I live in Valparaiso, Indiana, and I listen to my local news on NFB Newsline.
As a student, I enjoy reading current events on NFB Newsline.
Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
Subscribe free to NFB Newsline today.
If you or someone you know is visually impaired or print challenged, the National Federation of the Blind has a resource you need.
I am a CFP practitioner, and I happen to be blind. I rely on NFB Newsline to keep me current with Wall Street Journal and the Financial Times.
Hoosiers can hear Indiana magazines, circulars, national magazines, and information from across the globe. Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
Welcome to this segment of the National Federation of the Blind Newsline Indiana. As mentioned earlier, we have a special guest today, Ms. Margaret Zipporah Jones. And Zipporah, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Florence. I'm glad to be here.
It's a pleasure to have her, isn't it?
It is.
So thanks for Zooming with us, because we're steady Zooming. And so we know that you're a lady that travels a lot. So let's see, you're originally from, where are you from? Tell us a little bit about you.
I'm originally from California. I moved to Georgia when I was about 18. I moved to Florida when, like a year after I lost my sight. I lived in Florida all the way up until 2010. Then I moved to Nevada, and I'm currently living in Alabama.
So you're on the road quite a bit from our conversations, and 3 different time zones. I don't know how you keep up with yourself. And right now you're currently in Indiana?
Yes, I'm in Howey, Indiana.
Howey, Indiana, girl, you do a lot of traveling. You know, and just to bring our audience up to speed, our viewers up to speed, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background.
Oh, wow. Okay, Lee, you know, that's the hardest thing for me. Okay, I've been blind for 21 years. It'll be 22 years this December. I'll celebrate 22 years. I went blind 2 weeks after I turned 24. I had a blood clot in my eye, squeezed the nerve. And so vision, and then 2 weeks later, I was blind. At that time, I had 2 children. My youngest was 1.5 years. And basically, I just been, trying to, move forward. I went back to school. I went to college, and for a little while, I worked in different little areas of like call center type things for the military. Right now I'm doing a podcast called Talking Blind, and I'm looking to go back into the business enterprise program in Alabama, which I was in for about a year or so in Las Vegas before I moved. And that's about me in a nutshell, other than I have 3 grandchildren, 3 lovely grandchildren, 5, 3, and 1 years old.
Now, you mentioned, I'm going to back up a little bit because you travel quite a bit. And you said that you worked in a call center in the military. Now, are you a veteran by?
No, I am not. A lot of people used to think that because for some odd reason, everywhere I've ever lived has been near some type of military base. But no, I am not military. My dad was when I was younger. But no, I travel. The reason why I'm traveling now is because of COVID. So.
You traveled quite a bit, and you just had a great success story there, because there's hundreds and hundreds of blind persons that need some kind of support system. Your experiences is what we hope to convey today as we talk about the dating and marriage and just being successful as a blind female. So I would like to start out with you lost your sight, but were you married at that time?
No, actually, at that time, I was not married. I no. That's what he says. No,
So
wasn't
okay,
married.
okay. So tell me something. When you lost your sight, and how did that? Did you ever think about the future of dating and you know being
Well,
appropriate for?
so I was dating someone when I lost my sight. Actually, he was the one that took me to that last doctor's appointment, and I do remember wondering, would this relationship continue because I lost my sight. And I will say, I am blessed to say that the people that were around me at the time, they didn't treat me really any different. You know, I guess everybody feels like I've accomplished a lot in my life, like as far as strength wise, that this was just another hump that I could get over.
Okay.
So I just had support behind me. My daughter's father was right there. I mean, he did make a comment, like if it happened to him, he would have crawled into his mom's basement and sat on the couch. But for me, he knew I could handle it.
Now, with this transition into blindness, now you said that you had your family support, and most of your friends seem to be with you during that time.
Mm-hmm.
However, what do you feel is your biggest challenge? What was your biggest concern while you were losing your sight? You mentioned that you had children, and that while you were in a relationship, that person was there. But what was really in the background of your mind during that time?
Well, honestly, at first I didn't think there was going to be any issues, but I will tell you about an incident that really kind of shook me. It was a little while after I lost my sight, and the father of my daughter, they had finally put him on child support, and he wasn't too happy with that. And so he came to me one day and he said, "How would you feel if I, got custody of her and put you on child support?" So the first thing that ran through my mind was, I'm blind, he's sighted, he's working, I'm barely working at a little job, he's gonna get my daughter. Because I knew back then that with me having the multiple disabilities that I had and being blind and being new to being blind, he had my child automatically. And so I panicked. I am not gonna tell no lie, I cried. I called around. My man at the time, the one that helped me raise my children, and the one that I went back to that we're together now, told me, don't fear that, because I'm a good mother and I'll be able to take care of my kids. But that scared the crap out of me. I just knew he was going to get custody of my kids.
And the thing about that is that I think that that's one of those natural things that a person might feel because of the disabilities, as people want to call it. I can understand that. However, you being a wonderful parent, basically, it just overshadowed everything. And so I guess everything did turn out well with that, right?
Yeah, it was just a threat. He never went through with it. I think he was just mad that day. But like I said, it rocked me to my core. I felt like I had to be the perfect parent. I couldn't make any mistakes, because if I did, I was going to lose my daughter. And that was just not in the cards. I mean, I did threaten him, like if he ever did get custody of my daughter, he might as well prepare for an extra roommate, because I was going to move in. Maybe that changed his mind, but yeah, it scared me.
That is such a reality that a lot of people face, and we're going to talk a little bit about that when we come back. Some of the fears that we face as blind parents and losing custody of our children as it runs throughout the country, as we confront that with the National Federation of the Blind throughout the country. So we'll be right back, so stay tuned.
I'm Danny Wayne Beamer, Program Manager of the Elder Blind Program at the Will Center in Terre Haute, Indiana. I introduced the NFB Newsline to seniors in 13 southwestern counties in Indiana. I also utilize the NFB Newsline for my radio station public affairs shows. The NFB Newsline, experience it today.
Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
We are the nation's blind, and we read NFB Newsline.
If you or someone you know is visually impaired or print challenged, the National Federation of the Blind has a resource you need.
Wow, I scored a touchdown when I found sports on NFB Newsline.
I enjoy reading TV guide listings on NFB Newsline.
Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
We are the nation's blind. We read NFB Newsline.
It's free.
Well, welcome to this segment of the National Federation of the Blind Newsline, Indiana. And we're talking with our guest today, Ms. Zipporah Jones. And Zipporah, we had a very interesting conversation earlier. Let's talk a little bit about blind and dating. What's your take on that, Zipporah?
Well, honestly, Florence, I am going to tell you that there is a lot of different things out there for dating blind. I've dated being blind with a sighted spouse, and I've dated another blind person. Well, I actually married that blind person, excuse me. But I would tell you, a relationship is a relationship. You got your good and your bad with the sighted as well as with the vision impaired person. Originally, I didn't want to date somebody else that was visually impaired because I felt like, the stereotypes. I have help. I need help with certain things. This person needs help with certain things. We're going to be in trouble, But a lot of people told me that person can understand me a little more because they do have the same issues that I have because they're visually impaired. And yes, that's true in some ways. If I had what I call a blind moment, that person understood what that meant without me having to go into detail what, that meant. With my sighted spouse, I feel like there's some things that in the blind world, I have to explain a little more as far as my emotions or my feelings go. But honestly, after being in a long relationship from the beginning of me going blind to starting all over again, I didn't like it. I mean, you out there nowadays, people are dating online. You got all these expectations of what you're supposed to do and not supposed to do. I'll tell you, in this day and age, I don't ever want to date again, honestly.
That's understandable. Now, you being a young lady, and this is a question that our host Lee had addressed earlier. Being a young lady and dating blind, you just mentioned that's something that you would not want to do again. But did you find that you had to do anything extra or, I think that most people think that being blind is hard. It's hard to date. Do you feel that it interfered with your, I'm just going to put it out there, your self-esteem or anything like that?
Oh, honestly, there's a lot. I think women, we have it a little easier because the men are actually the ones that come, after us, more or less. I think I was concerned about my image, my weight, my hair, making sure I was on point with that. Because after being in a long-term relationship, I'm not gonna lie, you get a little comfortable. And I had to get back into, how do I look? You know, is my hair on point? Is my, you know, and things like that. So that was a concern of mine. And the whole dating thing, you know, eye contact, people waving at you from a distance and you not being able to see that. You know, I used to think that people weren't trying to talk to me because, you know, I didn't get, you know, many people talking to me. But my sister told me, well, you got guys waving at you and winking at you from across the room and you're not responding. So they're just thinking you're stuck up, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, it's you know, we try to get the other person's, you know, attention, you know, with all these mannerisms. And they don't realize in the beginning that if you're sitting at a table, you got your sunglasses on and you're just chilling, that you don't see them, you know? So there's a lot out there. There is a lot. I mean, I think Lee could probably tell us a little bit more on the guy side of, you know, dating.
Well, Lee can't tell you a whole lot, but I do know from, you know, what I hear and what I've experienced as transitioning into blindness. You know, you have to get comfortable with yourself, number one, and that's often hard to do when you're transitioning. Now, for those individuals that are congenitally blind, have been blind all their life, you know, that's a whole different dynamic with them. You mentioned visually impaired, and then you mentioned blind. I want to kind of clear that up with our audience, is that those that are visually impaired, you know, those are individuals that have some sight acuity. And then there are those that are blind that are we consider totally blind. But in the National Federation of the Blind, we lump them all into one category and we just call everybody blind. But then you have individuals that say, well, I'm not blind, I'm visually impaired. So everybody trying to hold
I think that makes a difference, though, in the dating world, whether you're totally blind or visually impaired.
Yeah. And I also think that a person has to get comfortable with where they are and who they are. Even with blindness, you know, you get to a point where you just embrace your blindness. It's just a part of who you are. And it does not define us, but it still is a part of who we are.
Oh, yeah.
You know? And when you're dating, basically, as I understand it, the man usually pursues the woman anyway. That's just the way it is.
Just like you mentioned a minute ago, Florence, about the insecurities of it, you know, like you said, if you're comfortable in your blindness, you're not as insecure. So I can say in the beginning, when I first lost my sight, I kind of questioned whether somebody was with me because, like men, I think they just want to take care of a woman. So I was wondering if the guy I was with was just taking care of me because I was blind, you know, and not that I was a woman that was handling, you know, the womanly duties, you know. And when I was with my husband and he was newly to being blind, I was wondering if I was helping him out of my wifely duties or was I enabling him, you know, because I felt that he wasn't quite up the, you know, speed in the beginning and that he needed more of my help. So there was like you know, I kind of struggled with that, you know, in both areas, you know, as far as insecurities or, you know, strengths or weaknesses.
Because we want to be that, as I call us, we want to be that phenomenal woman, no matter what. You know, always a work in progress. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? And I think that whether you're blind or whether you're sighted, we all have some challenges. Don't you agree, Zipporah?
Oh, definitely. I mean, a woman is a woman, no matter, you know, whether you take her eyes or give her eyes or, you know, you make her fat or make her skinny or you got long hair, short hair. We're still women, you know, and we still have to make sure that, you know, we're secure in who we are. And, you know, you can't be with anybody else if you're not secure in yourself, honestly. It's gonna present problems anyway.
So true. So true. And I'm at this point, Zipporah, I can't help but, you know, just think about, you know, it's all a transition. It's all a transition.
definitely. I think the part that I think is probably the hardest transition of that was transitioning with raising the kids, dating, the whole bundle, trying to, because you got to make sure that the guy that you're dating you can't bring him home right away.
Yes, that's right. That's right. That's right.
And as a visually impaired person, you really got to be, in our minds, we have to be extra careful because we can't see what the other person is doing, So to me, that's a big factor too. So.
It is. It is. It is. And the thing is that you're talking about as far as being a woman and then being a mother too.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, I think it's time for us to take a break, and we'll be right back, and we'll talk a little bit more with Zipporah.
If you or someone you know is visually impaired or print challenged, the National Federation of the Blind has a resource you need.
I am a CFP practitioner, and I happen to be blind. I rely on NFB Newsline to keep me current with Wall Street Journal and the Financial Times.
Hoosiers can hear Indiana magazines, circulars, national magazines, and information from across the globe. Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
We are the nation's blind, and we read NFB Newsline.
As I travel the nation, I read NFB Newsline.
I live in Valparaiso, Indiana, and I listen to my local news on NFB Newsline.
As a student, I enjoy reading current events on NFB Newsline.
Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
Subscribe free to NFB Newsline today.
The National Federation of the Blind knows that blindness is not the characteristic that defines you or your future. Every day we raise the expectations of blind people because low expectations create obstacles between blind people and our dreams. You can live the life you want. Blindness is not what holds you back.
Welcome to the conclusion of our show today. Ms. Zipporah, thank you for being our guest. Would you tell the audience a little bit about what's going on now with you?
Well, right now, like I said, I am just currently doing my podcast, Talking Blind, and you can find that on any of your podcasting platforms. You can ask, Siri, Alexa, Google, just tell them to play Talking Blind podcast and it'll start playing. Or you can email me at talkingblind2020@gmail.com. If you want to, share your story of blindness, it's just another side of being visually impaired to point out some of the things that we as visually impaired people are doing in the community.
Well, we want to thank you all for joining us once again. And I just want to talk a little bit about the seriousness of parental rights here in the state of Indiana. We are now in front of our legislature, and we'll be talking in the next session regarding SB 312, Parental Rights Bill and Fostering Parent Bill for people that are disabled and people that are blind. So more information on our next show.
National Federation of the Blind, Newsline, Indiana. For more information, go to nfb-in.org or call 855-963-6476. That's 855-963-6476. The National Federation of the Blind encourages you to live the life you want.